What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to Fresh Review. Now, you're new to the channel. What I do is I review NFL games, NBA games, WWE premium live events, TV shows, movies, and much more. And I showcase you guys the rubric I use so you guys can see how I'm grading these consistently. So I did that for my NBA videos, I did that for my WWE videos, and my TV shows and movies. Now I'm doing it for the NFL. So we have a week 1 recap review coming out tomorrow or later today. So if you want to watch that video, go ahead and subscribe. In the background, you guys saw in the beginning, I showcased my team. Now I have a whole bunch of Madden 25 highlights so you guys can see my team in action as well. If you got any concerns about any of the cards, you can leave those down below. I'll tell you how some of these players play. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Some of these cards are really good on the game, and they are not that good in real life. I don't know where EA is getting these ratings from, but I mean, that's a different story. Let's go ahead and talk about the review and the rubric, because I have broken this rubric down in a scale that ranges from 0 to 100 and consists of 10 elements I look for. You could divide these elements into 5 categories. So we're going to start with the first category, and that is the pre-game elements. The pre-game elements consist of the stakes and the rivalries or the storylines. An example of a good or great rivalry storyline being built is what we had in week 1. The MVP in the NFL and the Super Bowl MVP, Lamar Jackson versus Pat Mahomes. It's an AFC Championship rematch. That gets you guys hyped as a season opener of the game. That's a whole lot of hype being built. Another example would be Detroit versus the Rams. So we got the Lions, Matthew Stafford. It's a rematch from the wild card round last year. Matthew Stafford's returning back to Detroit. He's going back to Detroit to play his former team. Same with Jared Goff, who's also playing his former team. Like I said, it's a playoff rematch. Those are great pre-game elements that get you hyped before the game even kicks off. The opposite hand, we have the Saints and the Panthers. Although that's a divisional matchup, nobody really cares outside of Saints and Panther fans. Maybe you got some players playing in fantasy, or you took some bets on them over and the under, whatever the case may be. Nobody's really trying to watch Bryce Young and Derek Carr stink up the joint, all right? So those are examples of good and bad rivalries and storylines that can hype up a match. Example of the stakes would be what's on the line. So if we use that Ravens and Chiefs for example, even though it's week 1, that's an important game because those two teams will probably be back in the playoffs again, and that game had playoff implications, perhaps, right? So since the Chiefs won that game, what the Chiefs have is the tiebreaker over the Ravens. So they finish with the same record. The Ravens would be below the Chiefs. That could determine home field advantage throughout the conference. That could determine home field advantage if they were to match up in round 1 or round 2, wherever the case may be. All that stuff is important. A game that doesn't have high stakes is a game where these teams are both eliminated from playoff contention, or one team probably won't be that good in the playoff contention. They won't be in the playoff race for long. Like the Panthers look like they might already be eliminated from the playoffs already. I don't want to count them out after week 1, but I mean, they were the worst team last year by only winning one game, going 1-16. They might be trying to outdo themselves and go 0-17 this year. Now, you're a Panther fan and you're watching this video. I don't want to bash on you. So I'm not bashing on you. Just understand I'm bashing on your team. Your team is not very good. Now, I'm an Eagles fan, so if you want a high side on my team, whatever the case may be, go right ahead. But we are also accepting applications. If you like to join the Eagles fan club, you saw Saquon looked on Friday night in Brazil. Wait till he plays the Giants twice this year. He had 3 touchdowns against the Packers. He might have 7 against the Giants in those 2 games combined. So, we're accepting applicants. You got to apply fast, though. We don't accept them after we win the Super Bowl this year, so you got to apply now. It's a long line of people that want to join. I can't guarantee we'll be able to get you in by February, but we will try our hardest. But let's go ahead and go to our next subset category, and that is the scoring, because the best games have scoring that goes either A, back and forth, or there's an epic run or comeback that the other team goes on, right? So if you think of some of the best games you've ever seen, it was probably going back and forth, and each time the lead change happened or there was a tie, it felt like a giant plot twist. Or there's also some other games that are also tough to kind of gauge, because if you think back to the Patriots-Falcons Super Bowl, that is such a tough game to grade, because the first few quarters is like, it's 28-3. I don't think it's a good game. I'm about to fall asleep. This is a disappointment. But that fourth quarter was so electrifying. So was overtime. The Patriots complete that epic comeback. You have to call it legendary, because that epic run and comeback was so historic. where you'll always remember it. So we'll talk about more about memorability and stuff like that later. But I just want to give you guys that example of the Super Bowl. A back and forth game could be like the Chiefs and Rams on Monday night. You remember that game? That was 54-51. It was TD after TD after TD after TD. Electric games right there. A bad game example would be Rams versus Patriots in that Super Bowl, where it was 3-13. There weren't many lead changes or scorings or ties or anything like that. Whole lot of punts. The punter could have actually probably got Super Bowl MVP. There are so many punts. It was ridiculous. So those are some of the examples of how I'm looking at scoring. You can also kind of think of it how we would grade a movie. If the Patriots-Falcons game was one of those movies like, it's kind of boring all the way through, but you get to the final act and it's plot twist after plot twist and some of the best things you've ever seen. I mean, it's tough to grade that movie, right? Because the first hour and a half or 2 hours is kind of, the final hour is epic, right? So I think the best games are the ones that do go back and forth, but there is something about historic comebacks, right? That also makes them grade really high. But like I said, a game where there's no lead changes, it's a wire-to-wire victory, those won't grade very high on the scale. Next up, we have the performances, the plays, the highlights, whatever you need there. So what's the difference between the performances and the plays? The performances are like the totality of it. That makes sense. And the plays are the individual plays. So for example, a quarterback throws for 400 yards or Tom Brady thrown for 500 against my Eagles in the Super Bowl. That's a historic performance. Now you'll talk about the actual plays of the game. You'll talk about the Philly, the TD pass to Nick Foles. That's legendary. You got the strip sack on Tom Brady. You got the helmet catch by David Tyree in the Super Bowl. Those are the individual plays, but then you combine all those plays together and get the yardage, right? So the yardage they went for, how many TDs they had, whatever the case may be there. So you got to think of all that stuff right there. So I'm sure you probably heard the saying, big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. So what did these superstar players or any player do? Did a regular player play like a superstar in that game? Did a superstar player wild out, have one of the best games of his career? There should be a memorable performance, right? He had 3 TDs. You remember Christian McCaffrey, the cover athlete for Madden, the offensive player of the year, the dude that screwed me over in fantasy, by the way. McCaffrey, I'm going to need your Achilles to get right. If you need mine, you can have it. I just sit on my butt all day and play games. If you need my Achilles, you can have it, but you're my first overall pick, McCaffrey. I'm going to need you to be on that field. But you remember, a couple years ago, McCaffrey had a game where he threw for a TD, ran for a TD, and caught a TD. He had the hat trick. That's a historic performance. Now you think of the superstar highlight plays, the Odell Beckham catch. He goes up one-handed. We still talk about that stuff, right? I already said David Tyree, but any of those highlight plays, man. 4th and 18, Justin Jefferson catch. Julian Edelman catching the tip pass in the middle of the field. Marshawn Lynch not getting the ball at the 1-yard line. You know, there's crazy plays, man, that makes you love the game. Those are what we're also thinking of in grading. So some games have no highlight plays, right? It's just a whole bunch of nothing. Some games have some, but if it's one team doing it, that's not going to score great. It needs to be both teams making great plays. So one team's doing it, that's going to be like 5 points, right? So I want to also express that where both teams to grade high have to be competing at a high level. If one team's dominating the other, it's going to be a low-scoring game. It probably won't go past 50 too much unless it's a historic performance, right? Because I'm also taking what both teams do into account whenever I grade these categories. And let's go over to our next category, and these are the enhancing elements. So you could think of the crowd and the commentary here. You guys ever been to a game? It's something crazy about when the crowd is electrifying. Whether it's a high school football game, high school basketball game, college, a professional game, whatever the case may be. When the crowd's on their feet, electrifying, you can get the goosebumps. And it's the same way about the commentary. So the commentary also enhances it. I know some people watch the games without the commentary on, to each their own. But I think the commentary is awesome whenever you're watching games because it can really enhance the game, even for advanced and expert watchers or even casuals, right? You can explain the game to casuals and stuff, and it can make a moment more hype. If you remember some of their favorite plays, you could probably even remember the commentary associated with it. Kevin Harlan's one of my favorite commentators, period. I love Kevin Harlan's call on the Lamar Jackson TD run against the Bengals. Lamar Jackson, he broke his ankles. When he hit that spin move, he had that glitchy spin on, man. He is activated with the evasive, a.k.a. Big Trust, going crazy out there, broke 3 defenders with one spin move, ran in for a 47-yard TD run. Game was going crazy. It built that hype. It was already a fire play. It's a highlight play. It was a great performance that game by Lamar. But the hype that built right there but like commentary took it even to the next level. And then also commentary can drag. So sometimes I'm not the hugest Joe Buck guy. Same with Troy Aikman. They're not my favorite duo. Sometimes they don't have that enthusiasm. Definitely not nearly as much as Gus Johnson or Kevin Harlan. But to each their own. Maybe they're your guys' favorite commentary duo. Let me know. I want to know what your guys' favorite commentary duo is. I know a lot of people didn't like Chris Collinsworth. I like Collinsworth, Mike Tirico, Al Michaels. I like Jim Nance, Tony Romo. I like a lot of these guys, man. So I got no complaints for the most part. I used to like Charles Davis before I had to hear his voice every time I scored on Madden and stuff. Like, oh man, very annoying. But Charles Davis, I think, is a good commentator. I just get tired of his voice. Hear a little too much when you're watching all these highlights. You know how many games of Madden I play? I need to go to an insane asylum. I play too much Madden. This game is maddening. So in addition to the commentary, we also got the crowd. I mentioned it before, but the crowd, I love when they got their traditions they do before the game, after the game, wherever the case may be. Of course, they do it during the game. We got the fly equal fly chant. The Chiefs be doing that, oh, the tomahawk stuff and all that. All that stuff is very entertaining. But my favorite thing about the crowd is when you got 100,000 people on their feet making noise, and then the road team gets a game-winning TD. They walk it off, wherever the case may be, and then everybody just goes silent. I have a very bad problem with losing my remote to my TV. And sometimes I'm like, I gotta find this remote because the thing might just muted itself. I don't know what's going on. You got 100,000 people there and their library silent. I love seeing that, man. But let's go ahead and go over to our final two categories. And these are the memorability and the emotional investment. So the emotional investment is how attached you are to the team, the game, the outcome of the game, wherever the case may be. So emotional investment for your favorite team is going to be higher than for a team that you're not a fan of, right? So what I have to do as an Eagle fan is grade it unbiasedly, right? And I had to be like, if I was a fan of just the NFL, I didn't have a favorite team, whatever the case may be, how engaged will I be into this game, right? So we talked about the previous elements. Those are stuff that can get you engaged, right? So what's going on before the game, all this stuff ties in. Were there any highlight plays and stuff like that? You might watch a game that wasn't very entertaining, but then like, or you didn't plan for it to be very entertaining, but then you're watching it like, yo, bro, oh my goodness, you gotta watch this, bro. You gotta turn to this game. I'm sure you guys had that moment before where like you try to get somebody on board because they might not even like the teams or thought it wasn't going to be a good game, but you're like, bro, are you watching this? Like, how are you missing out on this? I think those are the emotional investments. So you could go into something not very emotionally invested originally, but then come out of it very emotionally invested towards the end. There was a game last year where the Falcons versus the Panthers, and or actually I think it was a couple years ago, and DJ Moore scores this crazy TD in the end zone, gives them the lead, but he takes his helmet off in celebration, so that gives the Falcons 15 yards advantage they use on kickoff, and they get back in field goal range and they score the game-winning field goal. This man DJ Moore caught like a 50-yard TD. He was the hero, but his emotions got the best of him, and you feel bad for him, but you're watching the game like, yo, this is crazy. You know, you got Hail Marys going on where you're jumping up and down like your team won. Like, you know, stuff like that is awesome for the emotional investment category. And then we also got the longevity. So the longevity is how long are you going to remember this game? Well, you'll be able to remember it 10, 15 years from now. You might not remember it originally, or it might not come up as like the best game you've ever seen, but somebody said, oh, you remember that game so-and-so? It'll definitely jog your memory because that game was memorable. It had highlight plays. It had key performances, clutch performances. It had the crowd going crazy, the commentary going crazy. Something about that game is memorable enough where you'll remember it if somebody jogs your memory even 10 plus years from now. So those are the 10 elements, and I will grade each category that I listed you guys on a scale of 0 to 10, and then it will total up to 0 to 100. So my NFL review will be coming out soon. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you guys need me to review any other thing, like any of these categories I didn't explain well enough, let me know. I will respond to all my comments as always. And I review games and WWE matches and sporting events, TV shows, movies, all that. You guys can review my stuff as well. Let me know what you guys thought of the gameplay. I thought about doing full games, but I had a friend that said highlights would be better. These are a lot to edit down and stuff, but you guys enjoy the highlights, I'll keep doing it. No problem for me. And let me know what you guys thought of the commentary. But as always, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope to see you guys on the next one. Peace out.